community. Here we are for another episode of the Personal PR Show. And today we have Lizi Jackson-Barrett, who does many things, among which she has given three TEDx talks. She has given 3 TEDx talks, and we want to know all about that. But before we do, I need to make a little announcement, which is that this week is speaking week. It's public speaking week. So we have Lizi as our first speaker, and then we have Marta. She's an actress, and she will talk to us about, how to basically use acting techniques and yoga techniques for our public speaking. And then the same day on Thursday, we will have Raimonda, and Raimonda is the founder of a community of 500,000 women. And it's all about, getting exposure, getting visibility through speaking, through public speaking. So this is really speaking week, public speaking week. And I would say it's even female public speaking week. So this is amazing. And we have Lizi here with us to open the dance, right? Yes. So I'm going to spotlight you, Lizi.
Okay. Ready for it?
Oh, yes. I'm going to spot myself as well, because, otherwise...
Great. Come and join me. It's a bit lonely here.
Right. Exactly. Lizi, thank you so much for joining us. This is amazing. Such a privilege to have you here.
Thank you.
Where are you? You're not in Zurich. I know.
I'm not in Zurich. No, I'm planning to come and visit you in Zurich at some point next year, I hope. But I am in Essex, which is just outside London, just on the borders of Northeast London. And yeah. I was born in this area, lived in this area, never gone all that far for very long.
But that's great. We were just talking about how you came through, you drove through Switzerland on your way to Italy a few years ago, right? And you loved it here. And and we all love England as well. Who doesn't love England? And English, they're always so kind. Yes. I always say this about the English and the Canadians. They're always so kind. Yes. But anyway, so would you like to maybe introduce yourself? What do you think? Because we know that we will talk about how you have been able to give 3, not 1 or 2, but 3 TEDx talks. This will be the topic, the main angle today. But there's so many more things that you do. So how about you introduce yourself to us?
Sure. So I'm Lizi Jackson-Barrett. I'm a confidence strategist. So I specialize in confidence growth for anybody who works in any area of business, whether it is kind of solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, whether it's bigger businesses and corporates. I have a firm belief that first, that confidence is a skill that anyone can learn, and I have developed my own kind of process for teaching it. And secondly, that we never reach our full potential unless we can take everything we've ever learned, all our skills, all our knowledge, and really underpin it with the confidence to use it to its full advantage, which most of us don't do. Most of us gather all of this knowledge and all these skills that we have in our businesses and in our working life, and we just scratch the surface of how much we can use it because we don't have the confidence to really push it forwards. So that's kind of the main part of what I do and what my business is all about. I'm also a mum to 13-year-old twins, a boy and a girl, and also a mum to 2 cats. And I'm the author of a best-selling body confidence book called How to Feel Beautiful. And a speaker as well, and obviously TEDx has played a big part in that speaking journey.
Yeah, and this is amazing. And should we also quickly mention that you are constantly on TV in England?
Well, constantly might be slightly pushing it, but I have been featured in the media a lot, in TV and radio and magazines and newspapers, and anywhere you can think of it, I've been there.
Yes, because if we take this picture that you kindly provided to me for the announcement of today's conversation, probably guys, you can see like here in this bar, there are so many logos of so many media, like publications and channels and so on. Come on, HuffPost, Marie Claire. And I'm just reading a few, right? Because I think there are at least 30. And then Metro. What else? TEDx, BBC, The Mirror, Clinique, The Telegraph, BBC Essex, the Reader's Digest. And I've just read just a few. ITV. So maybe not constantly on TV, not every day, but nearly, because otherwise
I do get around a bit. I've got a new
All
logo
of
that I
these.
have to, next week I have to squeeze in a new logo, because next week I'll have to add BBC Radio 4 to that banner. So.
This is amazing. So this is why we have to have you again on the show in a few weeks, in a few months. We'll arrange that. But we definitely have to talk about how you managed to get all of this publicity, like to get featured on so many third-party channels, which is social proof and which is actually gives you, credibility. Amazing.
Yes.
But today's topic, today's angle is my favorite word, is every publicist's favorite word, angle. Today's angle is TEDx. So Lizzie, would you like to tell us about the way you got 3 TEDx talks, maybe the first one, the second one, the third one? I mean, we are all ears. We can only learn from you. So take it away in any direction you want.
Sure. So I'm not quite a triple TEDx speaker yet, because my 3rd TEDx is next month. But as good as, yeah. So my first ever TEDx was early in 2020, and it was for TEDx University of Essex. So I decided probably around 2018, 2019 that I wanted to start bringing speaking into what I was doing and into what showed up in the world. And just to be, sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback and it's a bit distracting, but I'm going to try and ignore my own voice. Just to be seen as a speaker who kind of was starting to be seen on big stages. And of course, anybody who's ever wanted to speak knows that TEDx is kind of the holy grail of speaking. So I decided this was my plan. I really wanted to be a TEDx speaker, and it felt like a really big and slightly frightening goal to have, because I feel like there's a lot of kind of mystique and enigma around this whole idea of being a TEDx speaker, that it's a bit shrouded in mystery. And I kept being told that it's kind of this club that's really hard to break into, because you need to have introductions and you need to know someone who knows someone. And it all felt like a dream that I had, but that was just out of reach. But I started doing some research into ways that you could apply. And the first tip I would give anybody who has not even started looking into this yet is to get onto the TED website. So if you go onto TED.com, at the top of the website, there's a link that says attend, where you can look for all the TEDx events going on all around the world to see which ones you might want to attend. But of course, that then gives you an idea as to which TEDx are coming up that you might want to think about applying for, that are in the right area for you, in the right location. So I started there. That was where I began looking. And I found, because I live in Essex in the UK, that the University of Essex was going to be hosting a TEDx event. So I thought, well, it's local. That's probably a good place to start. And so I think all I did was I sent an email to the organisers and just said, I would really love to apply for your event. Could you let me know how I can apply to be a speaker? And they sent me a link. And I think that's the first, well, I'll give you the first. The second tip I have is to just try to make contact with the organisers. And yes, if you do have somebody who can make a personal introduction, then that's great. But my experience is that's not completely necessary. I think it's fine just to find them, and it's sometimes that's a bit of a research task in itself. So every TEDx event has its own channels. Most of them do have their own website, but they set their own websites up. Lots of them have a Facebook page, but not all. So it can take a little bit of digging to try and find actually where are they and how do I contact them. But once you do, just to reach out and send a message and say, I would really, really love to apply to be a speaker at your event. Could you let me know how I do that, what your process is? And then you are just on their radar a little bit. You're a name that's familiar to them, so that once your application form comes in, you immediately just stand out a little bit above all the other people because they've seen your name come up before. So that's what I did. I emailed the organisers of TEDx University of Essex, and they sent me a form, and I just filled in the form and then got an email saying I'd been picked. At the same time, because I was a woman on a mission and I really wanted to do this TEDx, I applied for another one around the same time. And this one was different because this one was through personal introduction. So a Facebook friend had been a speaker at TEDx Peterborough, which is it's in England, about a couple of hours drive north of where I live. And I asked him whether he would introduce me to the organisers. So he sent a Facebook message and introduced us, and we had some conversations, and then eventually I applied. And around the same time, I got 2 emails, one from the University of Essex and one from Peterborough, both confirming me as speakers. So it was very, very exciting to have been approved for both of them. What then happened was, it was 2020, so you see where this is going, right? The pandemic struck. Peterborough got postponed, and University of Essex became a virtual event rather than in person. So I went ahead and did University of Essex, and it was quite a bittersweet moment, really, because part of dreaming about doing TEDx is standing on the red dot and having the audience in front of you and having that whole experience. And instead, I stood right here in my living room and spoke to my laptop screen. So it felt a bit sad that I didn't get the whole experience, but it meant I could call myself a TEDx speaker. And that was how it started. That was the first one. And I think in terms of completing the application that got me those spots, because that's, I think, probably what people want to know more than anything else, is how do you write an application that gets picked? I'm going to keep looking down because I made some notes so I remember what I want to tell you. I think the most important thing when you're applying to do a TEDx is to always keep in mind TEDx's motto, which is ideas worth spreading. That's what everyone's looking for. And that's what you have to get across, is that you have an idea that's worth spreading. Now, that idea could take lots of forms. It might be something brand new that no one else has ever really had this idea or shared or formulated this idea before. It might be a new way of looking at something that people already know, or the concept that people are already familiar with. Excuse me, I'm just going to have some water. I'm going to cough.
Of course. Yes. I will say cheers. I will drink a little bit of tea with you. Cheers. Let's do it. Everybody, cheers. Okay.
Oh, so I do have a bad cough at the moment, but I'll keep going.
Poor you. Can you continue? Because otherwise I can, occupy 2 minutes.
I'm fine for now, I think. Yeah, I'll let you know. You might have to just talk if I cough too much.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing to keep in mind. But the second thing is that on top of ideas worth spreading, most, but not all, but most TEDx events also have their own theme that's chosen by the organisers. And so keeping that theme at the forefront of your mind is also really important, because the organisers are looking to see how you're not only a speaker with a great idea, but an idea that's really going to fit with this theme that they want to put forwards for their event, and that you're going to just really help them to build on it. So my first TEDx, their theme was risk-taking. And I wanted to speak about, really about the theme of my book, which is body confidence. And I wanted to explore an idea about what it means to see yourself as beautiful. And my idea was that you can identify as beautiful regardless of what you look like, but that identifying as beautiful is an act of defiance against the world that says beauty only looks a certain way. So this was my idea, but I wanted to make sure that the organisers could see how that fitted in with their theme. So in the application, I started talking about how it can feel really risky to step forwards, as in my case, a fat, bald woman, and say, I'm beautiful. And that can feel like taking a big risk. So I stayed true to my idea, true to what I wanted to speak about, but at the same time made it really, really clear for the organisers that this does fit your theme. You can't be in any question about whether this fits your theme, because I used the phrase risk-taking a number of times in the application to make it really clear for them. In my second TEDx, by the way, there was no theme, and I could just pitch whatever I wanted to. And actually, I found that a little bit harder. It was so huge. It's like, what am I going to speak about? But actually, I wanted to build on some ideas I had started to formulate in a previous talk I'd given. So my talk for my second TEDx was "Wrong is the New Right," which is that we live in a world on social media where the most important thing seems to be right, and keep proving why you're right, and keep pushing and pushing and pushing until you show that you're right, and that actually civilization is falling apart at the seams because of this. And actually the way for us all to step up and save the world is to learn to admit when we're wrong. Now, the second TEDx where I gave that talk was in April this year, and that was at TEDx at Northwich, which is up kind of in the north of England. And I could see how my experience of those two, the University of Essex and Northwich, showed me that how very, very different TEDx events can be, just in terms of the way the organisers run things, the amount of input you have from them, their requirements in terms of, so Northwich had a very, very clear timetable about, you need to submit your first draft by this date, you need to record yourself doing your talk by this date, you need to come to a rehearsal on this date, and it was very, very clear. So finally, in April this year, I got to stand on that red dot doing my second TEDx in front of the audience, and it was really exciting. I had such a good time posing in front of the red letters and all of those things that make part of the whole experience. And then finally next month, it's TEDx Peterborough, which is the one that I originally got approved for back at the end of 2019. It's finally now happening. And that one also has a theme. The theme for that one is building for the future, which obviously it's very open. There's most of our talks that we have inside our heads can quite easily fit the theme of building for the future with a few tweaks. So yeah, that's kind of the story up to that point of kind of what I did and where I spoke and how I try to make myself kind of fit their themes. I think that in terms of the application process, just looking at my notes to make sure I haven't forgotten what I wanted to say, is that as well as keeping in mind ideas worth spreading and the theme of the event, keeping in mind that for the organisers of TEDx, for each event, they are so invested in these events that they are running. It is so important to the organisers to do well. They want to deliver an incredible event that really impresses people, that the audience go away talking about the ideas they've had, the new knowledge they've gained, and they are looking for speakers who are going to help them with that. So I think that when we apply to be speakers at varying events, generally we're also thinking about what's in it for me, whether that is because we're being paid, whether it's because we get to promote our work, whether it's because of just the kudos of being on a certain stage, whatever it is. My belief is that when you apply for TEDx, we should mainly be thinking about what's in it for them. Why should they want us? Because actually we get the kudos of being TEDx speakers, and that's an incredible benefit in and of itself. And then finally, just keeping in mind that the final decisions for everything the organisers of TEDx do actually comes down to TED. They have to refer back to TED constantly with all the decisions they make. They have really strict rules that they have to adhere to. Even things like TED have very strict rules about the videos that are taken of the speakers. So when I did Northwich earlier this year, I had some big earrings on. That was part of this really carefully chosen outfit. And they told me that I had to take my earrings off because the microphone, I can't think what it's called, but the headset microphone, they were worried that my earring would knock against the mic, it would affect the sound, and that TED has such high standards that if that happened, even once during my talk, there was a chance that TED would reject the video and my video would never make it onto the TED platform. So I had to take my earrings off, so there was no chance that they were going to hit the mic during the talk. even things like the way you use the official photos afterwards. There are really strict rules that are given to us about how we can and cannot use those official photos. So I'm going to stop for breath and let you ask me any questions that you've got, Jessica, because I've probably covered quite a lot, but I'm sure there's more. And obviously, I'm very happy to answer any questions anyone has kind of in the chat as we're talking as well. So do feel free to
have a question.
fire questions at me.
Sorry, Chris Rich, I'll give you the word when it's time. Sorry, I have to moderate this.
Sorry.
But certainly you will have time to ask your questions. 1, 2, 3 questions, certainly. But before we get to that, I would just like to say that I've been first of all, I need to say that we have 2 people following us here on Zoom, and we have 6 people following us on Facebook Live, Lizzie, just so you know.
That's really good to know.
Yeah. So we will receive questions from Chris Rich and from Shanti, who are on Zoom, but also we guys on friends on Facebook Live, please feel free to drop your questions in the comment section of our live, or even to join us on Zoom, because I did copy paste the link of our Zoom meeting in Facebook Live. So feel free to join us here. You're very welcome. So Lizzie, that has been amazing. I've been taking notes while you were speaking, and I have 4 points. So, and it's great that you summarize these points, like the learnings as well at the end of your little talk here. So thank you so much, because this refreshes our memory and allows us to have an overview. That is amazing. And yes, so I just have like 3 comments, and that, you know, a couple of things that resonated with me. So in a way, the TEDx circuit has, let's say, is kind of centralized, because of course they have strict rules and you have to go through an application and so on. But at the same time, it's a decentralized process as well, because as you said, like you have had the experience to, you know, perform on 2 TEDx stages, and so many things were different. Right. So we have to keep this in mind. It's centralized, but at the same time, it's decentralized as well. So yes, awesome. That is something to keep in mind for our strategy, TEDx strategy. And then I love the fact that you mentioned the theme as well. And I think that because some people might get scared a little bit, like you can tell me what you think, but I think that some people might be scared because they're like, oh my God, I have nothing to say about this particular theme. Whereas, you know, or maybe, you know, I have my set of topics that I usually discuss and talk about in public, but they have nothing to do with this theme. And of course, there needs to be some connection, but at the same time, it's something that I teach in publicity as well. Basically, we can have our topics, our breakthrough idea, right? But at the same time, we can always give it an angle of the platform, right, that we appear on. Exactly. This is all we do usually. Like when I work with clients, I say, okay, you have your 3-4 topics maybe, and then you go to a podcast and then you gather information about the audience of that particular podcast. Maybe you request a media kit, right, that gives you information about the psychographic, the demographic of that particular audience. And then you take your topic, you still keep your topic, but you give it an angle that will be relevant, right, for that particular audience. So I love this, that you mentioned this, because I mean, you were able to take confidence, which is it's your signature topic, but you were able to give it an angle that was relevant for that particular TEDx conference. So well done. I love
and
this.
I think that when they choose their themes, they I don't think they choose them to try to be difficult or catch people out. I think they deliberately choose themes that can be quite far-reaching and open to interpretation. I think, you know, organisers are looking to make themes easy to feel like building for the future, for example. So I don't think we should worry overly about those themes, but just to keep on referring back to them so that we're making it really clear.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for pointing this out. And the last thing that I wanted to say is that what did I want to say? Yeah, I love when your point number 3 was let's ask ourselves what is in for them. Of course, there's something in for us as well, in it for us as well, of course, because we can say, oh, I'm a TEDx speaker. Of course, there's a whole, you know, a whole testament to our thought leadership, definitely. So, and it's happens quite in an automatic way. What we need to focus on when we're preparing and delivering a TEDx talk is actually what is in for the TEDx organizers and also for the audience, right? And this is something that I love, and I teach this in publicity as well. And that is actually the very, how can I say, the very nature also of journalism. Usually when we as publicists have, we will liaise with journalists, we're always trying to serve the journalists, and the journalists are actually trying to serve their audience. So they're trying to propose something that will be relevant and helpful for the audience. So we always need to keep that in mind. Like, this is real journalism and real, publicistic or publicity work, I would say. So I love that too. So publicity and, TEDx talks have a lot to do with one another. So, and as you mentioned, it's not, I always say, it's not like the tagline of TEDx is not, is ideas worth spreading. It's not products or services worth promoting, worth selling, right? We're not talking to an audience of potential buyers, of clients. We're talking with an audience basically with an audience, with just an audience, right? That maybe they will even buy a service from us. But at the same time, this shouldn't be our primary focus, because it's really about spreading the idea that you have in mind, because you believe in this idea so much that you want to spread it with as many people as possible. If your TEDx talk reaches, I don't know, 10,000 people, you won't be able to serve all of them, right? It's not possible. Yeah, because even if you want, it's not possible. I mean, we have our limitation, but we believe in our ideas so much that we really want to reach these 10,000 people, millions of people, exactly. And this is really like the best platform for thought leadership. So thank you so much. I just wanted to say these things as well, because because what you said really resonated with me, and I thought it would be, a cool thing to add. But at the same time, I'm very conscious as well that the spotlight is on you today.
Yeah,
so
I think the way that you pulled out those points is really important, just to pull those things out. And I think you've mentioned something that's also important to just reiterate, really, which is, it's not only, not a place where you should be kind of thinking about promoting your work or anything like that, but actually, if there is even the slightest hint in your application that you are there to promote yourself or what you do or your book or your business or anything else, you can say goodbye to that TEDx. So any idea you have of using your TEDx stage as a platform to promote what you do, just no, don't go there. Otherwise, you will not get that TEDx talk for yourself.
Exactly. This is amazing. Thank you so much for mentioning that. Yes. And okay, actually, one thing has just occurred to me, but I'll tell you at the end. But I've written it down because it's very important, and maybe it's something that you'll be interested in, and our audience for sure. So, Lizzie, do you feel ready for a few questions?
I do, yes, I did. There's a couple of things I wrote down, and I'll come back to at the end, because I wrote down some, just kind of a few pieces of advice of things you should not be telling yourself about TEDx, but I'll save those for the end and see what questions we get first.
Absolutely, that's so cool. Thank you so much, which is very in line with confidence, which is your area of expertise. Yeah. This is amazing, right? Cool. So we have 6 people on Facebook Live. Friends, feel free to drop your questions in chat. But in the meantime, let's take questions from our friends on Zoom. So I see that Shanti has her hand up, and Chris Rich is there as well. Okay, so let's start with Shanti now, because she has a hand up. But Chris Rich will be with you in a couple of minutes. Shanti, let me bring you into the spotlight. Yes, welcome in the spotlight.
Oh, thank you, Lizzie and Jessica, for this really informative presentation. I have 2 questions, if I may. I'm really intrigued by what you said, Lizzie, about the what's in it for them angle. I mean, I know that's usually in any pitch, which is essentially what we're doing. Could you elaborate a little bit about what's in it for the organizer? You may have a fantastic idea that's revolutionary, world-changing, but I'm curious, how can we tap into what is important for the organizer and then build a bridge from our offer to their priorities?
Thank you, Shanti. That's I'm really glad you've asked me to explain that more, because I can see, actually, it's easy to say what's in it for them. I think there's a couple of things to bear in mind. The first one is, and something I forgot to say, is that each TEDx event has its own process for applying. They all create their own applications. So some of them will just say, send us an email. Some have a really detailed application form with lots of questions drawing out what they want to know. But however you do it, they all want to know kind of, how will the audience be left feeling? What will the audience go away knowing? So talking to them directly about the impact you will have on their audience in the room, I think is very important. Even if they don't explicitly ask you to, the main thing that TEDx organizers appear to me to care most about is not how many views you're going to get on the YouTube channel afterwards, but it's about that audience who is there in the room with you at the time. How will they feel? What will they learn? What will they go away knowing? What will they go away talking about? What will they go away doing differently or thinking differently? Those are the kinds of phrases that really seem to make a difference. What will be different for people after being at that event because they heard you? The second thing that I was going to mention in terms of what's in it for the organisers, I guess, is just thinking about holding a license from TED comes with a big responsibility on their shoulders and lots of things they have to go to TED to ask, to confirm, to have agreed on. What I've been told in the last couple of weeks for the next one coming up is that TED is now getting more and more insistent on each talk being backed up with kind of research or stats or reports that you've read or studies that are out there to add credibility to what you're saying. It seems to be that TED is thinking now that a person with an idea isn't quite enough anymore. If your idea can link to a study that's been carried out, for example, that helps your event organizer to get it past TED, to have TED say to them, yep, we're good to go with that talk. It's not to say that if there is no study out there that backs up what you're saying or that you're arguing against, it's not to say you can't apply, but making the organizer's life easier by giving them all of those things helps a lot. So if you can link what you're saying to something that gives you credibility as a speaker, then I think that also really helps in terms of what's in it for the organisers. So yeah, that's kind of the best couple of tips I can give on that. I hope that helps.
Thank you. That's really helpful. And my second question is about links to geography. And so some of the forms do say, what's your connection to this region? But then I also see people, and Jessica and I are in this community where there are a lot of people doing TED Talks and TEDx Talks, and they live in one place and thousands of miles away, they get invited or land a TED Talk somewhere else. So I'm curious how strong the link is and how do you overcome that, these geographic barriers. And it seems to me some of it still boils down to whom you know, maybe.
I think there certainly can be a who you know element to it. So the first one that I did was in my kind of home county of Essex, and that was very deliberately because I believed the same as you're saying now, Shanti, that you have to have that kind of physical relationship with the area that you're speaking in. I don't know a definitive answer to this because I've never asked a TEDx organizer outright. But apart from my first one, the other two, they're not in my hometown. I mean, the one I did in April last year was about a 3 to 4 hour drive from my house. I mean, it's not close. So my impression is that they like to have maybe a couple of speakers on their lineup who have who kind of live nearby or have the connection to the area. But other than that, my feeling is they are just looking for the best speakers for their event. But that is just kind of my own gut instinct from having been there rather than based on anything I've actually asked anyone.
Thank you so much. Really.
My pleasure.
That is great. Yes. Okay. So let's bring Chris Rich into the spotlight, Lizzie.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you so much that I may come to the spotlight. Right now, I have prepared 3 questions. My first
Wonderful.
question is, sometimes I see TEDx talks with slides, sometimes without slides. What do they prefer? Is it important to create slides to give a better impression of additional visualization, emotions, and summary and structure with slides? In case yes, how many slides? What do they expect from a slides perspective?
Again, I think it's quite individual to the different events. So my first one, I used quite a lot of slides, but bearing in mind that ended up being a virtual event, it kind of made more sense to have plenty of slides rather than just my face on a screen the whole time. Mm-hmm. The second one I did, out of the 12 speakers on the lineup, as far as I can recall, only one used slides, so that was just to show a very short piece at the beginning of her talk. That was an event where the organizers were much preferred us to not use slides, which as a speaker is a lot harder because the slides can prove to be a prompt for what you're going to say next. That's the hardest talk I ever gave because I had to memorize a 14-minute talk virtually word for word. So that's long and that was hard. So I prefer to have some slides where I can. And actually, I'm just waiting to hear back from the one I'm doing next month about whether they're happy for me to use some slides. What I would say, though, is that I think they all prefer it to not be too slide heavy. What they want is the focus to be on the speaker, the person standing there on that stage, on that red dot, and really for the slides to not prove to be too much of a distraction. So sometimes if we're giving a talk or watching a talk, the slides are just there to kind of back up what you're saying or to show a bit more about what you're saying. I would say probably as a rule of thumb, to only use slides if those slides are adding something extra to your talk, rather than just to put in words what you're already saying, which is sometimes what happens when we're speaking.
Yes. To be impressive somehow. My second question is, you mentioned something about this onboarding and then interviews, rehearsal, until you're really on this stage and you're having your speech. How much time might be required with this entire process to get there? What do you think as a guidance, as an advice, and as an advice, what needs to be expected sometimes?
So again, really, I probably am giving the same answer to most of the questions, but then it really does vary from event to event. So the first one that I did, it was just a couple of let's meet on Zoom and go through it together and give each other feedback. The second one I did, it was a lot of different things to put in the diary for meeting at this point, going to this talk, some were in person, some were on Zoom. So it's impossible for me to give you a definitive answer because each organizer has a different way of doing it. Personally, I really liked the structure I got in the second one because it kept me on track and it made sure that I was giving the best talk I possibly could.
So this leads me a bit to the next question. Okay. I know a lot about TED Talks. I have seen hundreds of TED Talks, of course, but I still have the impression that I do not yet know some significant relevant details about this organization. How did all that start and who was TED and what means this X and why is it so individual and at the same time one brand with one vision? Can you just share some more of these relevant details that we all understand a little bit better? What is really behind this TEDx wave of inspiring the world?
I can certainly give you a brief answer to some of that, and the rest of it, I think we might have to go away and research. But TED isn't a person. TED stands for, I believe it stands for Technology, Entertainment, Design, I think. Oh, okay. So really, it's just covering education. Thank you, not entertainment. And so it really just kind of sums up the areas that the broad themes that they want talks to cover. Go on, Jessica.
Mea culpa, entertainment it is. I'm so sorry, Lizzie.
I think they might have changed it. I think you might have been right originally. I believe that it was education, I think, but I might be wrong. Don't hold me to that. So TED, obviously, it started out as these talks that people were giving. And as it grew in reputation and status and credibility, what they started to do was give licenses to people to hold kind of smaller scale TED style events at different places around the world. So the X just means it's one of those. It's not one of the big kind of formal kind of original TED events. TEDx means that it's a license that's been given to somebody else to hold a TED style event.
But that was a group in the beginning, a team or an investor, that this became so big. So how did they start?
At this point, my knowledge runs out, I'm afraid, Chris Rich, so we may have to do some
therefore
research.
I will research on the internet
Yes.
to find out the story behind TED and TEDx.
I think that's
Thank you so much for
idea. It's my
answering
pleasure.
all these questions, and
That's
it's
my
really
pleasure, no
interesting
problem.
to learn from your experience. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Chris Rich. And I can say in the meantime that Shanti wrote in chat that Chris Anderson is the founder of TED, which then gave birth afterwards to TEDx. Exactly. Yes, but I'm happy also to report that I'm happy to report that on Facebook Live we still have 6 people, Lizzie, and one of them is, or maybe he's already left us, but certainly he was here for at least a portion of our live. It's Mark, and Mark is a TED organizer from Germany, and he's a friend of mine,
wonderful.
and he's still on the show to talk about the other side of things. So you are the TEDx speaker, he's the TEDx organizer. So he will be with us in a few weeks, and we'll do a live with him as well. And then my dream would be, like, later this month to have both of you on a live, on a little panel.
That sounds
What
great.
do you think?
Love that idea. And then I can pitch an idea to him.
Yes, and you can get immediate feedback. That's so cool. So I will arrange that. Anyway, so Lizzie, that's something that you wanted to add, right, to the very useful information that you've already given us. That's even more.
Just to finish up with a couple of thoughts I had, but actually before I say those, one other thing that I did forget to mention is people don't always know that TEDx organizers, they do it for love. It's a passion project. They don't get paid. They don't earn any money for the massive amount of work that goes into organizing a TEDx event. The ticket sales go to cover the costs of hosting the event. Nobody makes any profit. Nobody gets paid for it. And I think it's really important as speakers that we remember that, because it's a very different thing for if we go to speak at a big expo, say, and the organizers are making a lot of money from hosting it. But I think I always go into these events with a huge amount of respect for the people who are giving up their time and their passion and their energy to give people like me a platform. So I thought it was worth mentioning that as well. So I wrote down just a very short list of things that you should not be telling yourself about applying to be a TEDx. And the first one is, I need to be a pro speaker. Because actually you don't. We have this idea that only the very, very best professional speakers get on the TEDx stage. And my experience is that when I've done TEDx's, a large proportion of my kind of fellow speakers are not professional speakers, and there are a couple who've never even stood on stage to deliver a talk before TEDx. And if you can be approved for kind of the right event with the right set of organizers, they will give you so much guidance and coaching and support to be a good speaker, that actually the idea you have is so much more important than your speaking ability initially. The second thing is that you should not be telling yourself, I need to create a perfect talk before I apply, because actually you don't have to have your talk written and every detail of it ready. You just need to have the idea. Have the idea that you want to share, have an idea about what it is the audience are going to gain from you being there, why the world needs to know this idea of yours, and then the rest of it can follow. Don't tell yourself that people only get picked if they've had a personal introduction. Obviously it can help, but 2 of my 3 TEDx's were not done by personal introduction. They were just doing it by applying in the normal way. Don't tell yourself that if you get turned down for a TEDx, you're not good enough to do TEDx. I got turned down for one last year. And the main reason I got turned down for it is because I didn't make it clear enough how my talk fitted in with the theme of the day. So that doesn't mean I'm not good enough. Of course I'm good enough. I'm about to be a triple TEDx speaker. It just meant that I wasn't quite right for that event, or I hadn't explained myself the way I needed to. And the final thing to not tell yourself is, don't say TEDx isn't for the likes of me. It's for other people. It's for, you know, people who are, you know, professional speakers or leaders in their field. Actually, TEDx is for anybody who has an idea and really believes passionately that people need to know this idea. So we can talk ourselves out of these things, and we don't do that. We don't need to talk ourselves out of it. We can just go for the things we want to do.
Oh my God. Oh, this is amazing. Yes, this is something to worth writing down as well. Thank you so much. And this, yeah. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, this is totally in line with confidence, which is your area of expertise as a confidence strategist, as the confidence strategist that you are, right? Exactly. I love it. Okay, awesome. Lizzie, I just wanted to let you know that we have some comments in the Facebook Live. So I'm going to read a few comments. So number one, Sydney, who is actually watching from Sydney, Australia. She wrote, Lizzie, you are such a lovely person.
Oh, thank you.
Sydney is a professional speaker, and also she helps a lot of professional speakers worldwide book stages all around the world. So that is Sydney. Then, still Sydney, a few minutes ago, she said that TED and TEDx, TED is run by Chris Anderson, Shanti, but it was actually founded by Harry Marks, just so we know, okay, the history of TED and TEDx a little bit. Okay, cool. Thank you for this info, Sydney. Then, okay, Sharon is watching us. She's a professional, she's a publicist and a speaker, and she is in England, like you, Lizzie. She hasn't written anything down, but I can see her in chat, which is great because usually I don't see everybody. But now I want to tell you, Lizzie, that Mark, whom we have talked about, we just talked about 5 minutes ago, right? The TEDx organizer from Germany, he's watching us still now. He's still online. So yes, and he said, awesome talk, both of you. So looking forward. So he's looking forward to being on this panel with you later in October, let's say, where we maybe I will ask questions, and then you both can answer the question from your particular perspective, right? Okay, that'd be fun. So, and then, but then he said that unfortunately has to leave right now, but that you did great. So you have exactly. You have the approval, the official approval via TEDx organizer. I mean, you've had many approvals from TEDx organizers, but one more now. Yes. Yeah. So this is what I wanted to report about chat. Okay.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Lizzie, I think we're nearing the end of our conversation. I mean, we still have 7 minutes. What is something that I haven't asked you, nobody has asked you yet, and that you would like to talk about that we should have asked you?
Well, I'm just going to have a little scan through my notes to make sure I haven't missed anything. No, I think I've said everything that I wrote down that I thought was important to say to you. I can't think of anything else, actually. I'm only in terms of, I suppose, the only other thing that has come to mind is just where I've said we absolutely should not be getting on that stage as a way of promoting our businesses. What we should be thinking about is using this as an opportunity to really elevate our position as a thought leader. So the stuff we want to be known for that is in turn going to help our businesses, that's fine, and that's what we should be doing. And actually, for the talk I'm giving next month, because it was so delayed due to COVID, and it was an application I originally made in 2019, the talk that I submitted, I don't want to give anymore. I've changed as a person, and the things I care about have changed. And I realized that if I gave that talk, I could do it, but it wouldn't really do anything to keep building my position as a thought leader. And so I went back to the organizers and said, please, can I submit a different idea to you? I don't want to do this talk anymore, which they have allowed, and they've approved that I can give the talk that I actually do want to give, that is very much in line with what I want to be known for. So I think there's a difference between, I can't go on stage and say, I am a confidence strategist and I can come into your business and do these things, but I can talk about the things that underlie all of that, which is, I think, the difference.
Wow.
And I can see Shanti's thought of another question. I see her hands up, so that saves me having to think of something else to tell you.
No, but that was an amazing point. Thank you for making it. And now let's bring Shanti back into, I want to do that. Ah, yes, Shanti. Okay, now I can do it because your camera is not on. I can only bring into the spotlight people whose camera is on. I found out. Okay, add spotlight. What? Oh, no, not change host. Sorry, add spotlight. Okay, so welcome back, Shanti.
So thanks again, Lizzie. You've had a huge amount of success. Nevertheless, looking back, if you had to have done something differently, what might that be?
I think it's this very recent realization around kind of pitching the talk that you really want to give, but finding the angle that the organizers really want to see. I think at the beginning, I was so focused on fitting their theme, making the organizers happy, that really the main thing I got from it was a kind of the credibility of being a TEDx speaker, but realizing much more recently that as well as that, as I just said, I guess, being able to use that TEDx to really elevate myself as a thought leader in what I want to be known for. So I think that's what probably what I would have done a little bit differently, especially, I guess, probably for the second talk I gave. I was really pleased with the talk. I was really happy with it. It was something I really cared about, but it probably didn't do very much for me in terms of the thing I want to be known for. So I think that's the only thing I would probably have done differently, is just think more about what do I actually want to be known for. So one of my favorite TEDx speakers is the late Sir Ken Robinson, who was a really incredible educator and gave some amazing TEDx's, all based around the theme of education. So he was known as, he developed his identity as a thought leader in the field of education. And so in future, when I apply for more TEDx's, I'm really going to be thinking more about my status as a thought leader in the field of confidence, and always trying to tie in with that wherever I can. So that's probably the main thing.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Okay, and I'd like to tell you, Lizzie, that we have some more comments in the Facebook Live. So Sharon from England, publicist and speaker from England, said, so love Lizzie's talk. She's amazing. Yes, totally agree.
Thank you,
Number
Sharon.
one. And number two, Sydney. And Sydney wrote again and she said, me too. Amazing speaker.
Oh,
yes.
I love that. Thank you very much. That's so nice to hear.
Everybody agrees. So I think next time I'll interview you about TEDx, like apart from the panel, then probably we'll have 4 TEDx talks. And then we'll have, you know, actually then you can, not for TEDx, but then in general for other platforms, you could then create a signature talk saying how I got 4 TEDx, how I landed 4 TEDx figure. Because when we achieve a certain milestone, then in thought leadership as well, this is actually something that we can start talking about. It can really become one of our signature topics. Like for example, in this group, we got 500 members in 27 days. And I'm like, yeah, does anybody want to know? And then people were like, yes, let me know how you made it. Like, so of course, we want to stay true to our main topic, of course, and the topic that we want to be known for, but we can always, you know, bring in these, let's say these milestones into our talks as well, into our content, and always, of course, give it an angle that is relevant, that is in line with our thought leadership and is relevant also to our public. But I think for you, I mean, you talk about confidence and having, let's say, a line in your speaking repertoire, let's say, of topics, right? And having a line that is about TEDx talks actually is in line with confidence. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a really good thought. I hadn't ever really considered that. So I might have to go back and change my speaker sheet and add that one in as another option, because I think you're right. I mean, I remember when I was trying to find out how to become a TEDx speaker. So yeah, I guess I now probably can answer that question. So yeah, thanks for that idea.
Of course, this is amazing, and so many people will be interested. Absolutely. Okay, cool. So I think we're good to go. I would say we are in time, like on time. It's nearly 12 p.m. here in Central European time. Lizi, anything else that you would like to say before we say goodbye?
No, just thank you so much for having me. I absolutely love this group that you've created. It's so important for us to know how to really elevate our PR the way that you teach us. So it's been really fun and exciting to be part of that conversation. So thank you, Jessica. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. I mean, I'm very grateful for your thanks, number one. And number two, I'm super grateful as well that you dedicate an hour of your precious time to us to teach us these things that otherwise it would not be easy to learn, right? Because it doesn't happen every day that we get to talk directly and ask questions directly to a triple TEDx speaker. So this has been a privilege for all of us. Thank you so much, Lizi. And we hope to welcome you soon back on our little stage here on the Personal PR show.
Thanks a lot, Lizi.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you, Lizi. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you soon. And this is speaking week. So we'll have another two guests that will talk about public speaking on Thursday. All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Lizi. Bye.
Bye.